I'm Ella, a single, 30-year-old woman who just can't seem to catch a break in love. After dumping my cheating ex, I needed a night out, and Lisa's party seemed like the perfect escape. My life's pretty simple outside the drama. I run a boutique in the city, a neat little place that sells fancy clothes to people who don't look at price tags. Walking into Lisa's packed apartment, I could barely hear myself think over the music and the buzz of the crowd. I grabbed a drink and was scouting a quiet corner when Lisa grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with excitement. "Ella, you made it. Look, there's someone I want you to meet. He's right up your alley, finance stuff and all that," she shouted over the music, dragging me through the throng of partygoers. Before I knew it, I was standing in front of a tall guy with a cheeky smile. He had the look of someone who knew exactly how much money he made, and wasn't afraid to let you know. "Ella, this is Nathan. Nathan, meet Ella. She owns the chicest clothing store downtown." Lisa introduced us with a wink and left before I could protest. Nathan's handshake was firm, his gaze curious. "A clothing store, huh? That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm in finance myself. Corporate investments and all that jazz," he said, his voice smooth, confident. "Yeah, it's great. I get to meet all sorts of interesting people," I replied, taking a sip of my drink, trying not to roll my eyes. The last thing I wanted was to talk shop. "So, how come I haven't seen you around before? A beautiful woman like you, I wouldn't forget," he continued, leaning in a bit too close for comfort. I shifted back, raising an eyebrow. "Probably because I spend more time with fabric swatches than I do at finance galas. What's your story? All numbers and big deals?" He laughed, a genuine, hearty sound. "Pretty much. It's not as glamorous as it sounds, though. But tonight, I'm off duty. Tell me, what's the worst part of running your own business?" "Inventory days and holiday returns," I said, warming up to the conversation, despite myself. "And you? What grinds your gears in the finance world?" "Regulations and the endless paperwork. But enough about work. What do you do for fun?" Nathan asked, his smile disarming. I found myself talking about my love for vintage jazz records and thrift store hunts, topics I hadn't expected to discuss with a finance guy at a noisy party. Nathan wasn't just listening, he was genuinely engaged, asking questions, sharing his own stories about trying to find the best music venues in the city. The evening flew by, and before I knew it, the party was winding down. Nathan looked at his watch, then back at me. I didn't expect to spend the whole evening talking to someone so intriguing. "Can I see you again?" I hesitated, the recent breakup flashing through my mind. "I'm not really looking to jump into anything new," I admitted. "No pressures. Let's just say it'll be about sharing more music and maybe some coffee. I know a place that plays live jazz on the weekends," he suggested. Dating Nathan was like stepping into a whirlwind of jazz nights and impromptu city walks. We'd been seeing each other for a while, and even though I'd told him from the start that I wasn't looking to dive deep into anything, it seemed like every day with him chipped a little bit more off my resolve. One evening, as autumn was just starting to bite, Nathan called me up and said, "Hey Ella, put on that fancy red dress you love so much. I've got a surprise for you." Curiosity piqued, I replied. "As long as this surprise involves some decent food, you've got yourself a deal." "I'm starving." He chuckled. "Trust me, you'll want to be there." I met him outside my store. He was leaning against his car, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. "Ready for that surprise?" he asked, opening the passenger door for me. As we drove, he kept the destination a secret, keeping up a steady stream of banter that left me both amused and slightly anxious. Finally, we pulled up to this cozy little jazz club downtown, the kind with dim lighting and intimate tables. The host led us to a secluded spot near the stage. Nathan's attention wasn't on the band, though, it was all on me. Halfway through a soulful saxophone solo, he leaned closer and said, "Ella, I know you said you wanted things light, but I've got to be honest with you." "Oh yeah?" I sipped my drink, my heart starting to race a bit. "Honest about what?" "About this." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, velvet box. As he opened it, the soft light caught on a simple, elegant ring. "I'm crazy about you, Ella. I don't want to just hang out or go on dates anymore. I want more. I want everything with you. Will you marry me?" For a moment, I was speechless. The music faded into a blur, and all I could see was his earnest, hopeful face. Then, my practical side kicked in. "Nathan, this is huge. You know I'm scared of jumping back into deep waters." I know. He rushed to reassure me, holding my hand. "But think about it. We're great together. You laugh at my jokes, I pretend to understand art because you love it, and we both can't dance to save our lives. What more do we need?" I laughed despite myself. "Maybe a bit more practice on the dance floor?" "Anything." He grinned. "So, what do you say?" Looking into his eyes, I realized that I did want this, us, a future, all of it. "Yes," I finally said, the word feeling lighter than I thought it would. "Yes, I'll marry you." Nathan slipped the ring on my finger, and we celebrated the only way we knew how, by staying until the club closed, talking about everything and nothing, already planning our next adventure together. The next day, Nathan was eager to introduce me to his mother, Mrs. Harper. We met for brunch at a quaint little cafe she loved. Right off the bat, Mrs. Harper was all smiles and open arms. "Oh, Ella, I'm so thrilled Nathan found someone like you. I just know we're going to be great friends." As we settled into our seats, she began chatting away, filling me in on all the little details of Nathan's life. "You know, he absolutely loves lasagna. I must give you my recipe. And if you really want to spoil him, make him his favorite, chocolate pecan pie. He's just like his father, can't resist a good pie." The brunch went by in a blur of laughter and shared stories, making me feel a little more part of Nathan's world, a world I was slowly, but surely, starting to love. It had been quite the reveal, taking Nathan to the house where I grew up. It's this big, old place that looks like it came straight out of a storybook, all thanks to my dad's knack for playing the stock exchange. When we pulled up in the driveway, Nathan's eyes about popped out of his head. "Wow, this place is incredible," he exclaimed, looking around like a kid in a candy store. "Yeah, Dad's done well for himself," I said, trying to play it cool even though I was proud of where I came from. Inside, Nathan was polite, but I caught him more than once checking out the finer details of the house's decor, the art on the walls, even asking my dad about some of the antiques. It wasn't all bad though, my parents seemed to like him, especially when Dad and Nathan started talking money and investments. My mom pulled me aside while the guys chatted. "He seems like a good man, Ella," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "Very attentive, isn't he?" "Yeah, he's great," I smiled, though part of me wondered if his interest was more in the lifestyle my family had than in me. I shook off the feeling, not wanting to judge too harshly too soon. Later, as we were leaving, Nathan couldn't stop talking about the house. "One day, I'd love a place like this. Imagine the parties I could throw, the people I'd host," he mused, already daydreaming. I nudged him lightly, bringing him back to earth. "You mean the kind of home we could build for our kids, right?" "Of course, that's what I meant," he corrected quickly with a sheepish grin. "Our kids would love it, wouldn't they?" "Definitely," I agreed, though his initial comment lingered in my mind longer than I wanted it to. Fast forward to today, our wedding day, and all those jitters and doubts seemed trivial compared to the joy of the moment. We decided on a simple ceremony at a local garden. It was intimate, just close family and friends, no big spectacle. As I walked down the aisle, seeing Nathan waiting for me, all my worries melted away. His smile was all I needed to reassure me of our future together. After we were declared husband and wife, the celebration began. It was laid back, just how we wanted it. We danced, laughed, and enjoyed the company of our loved ones. During the reception, my dad clinked his glass for a toast. "To Ella and Nathan, may your life together be as beautiful and enduring as this day. Remember, the best things in life aren't things. They're the moments and memories you create together." As the party carried on into the evening, I felt a profound sense of contentment. Whatever uncertainties the future held, I was ready to face them with Nathan by my side. Life after the wedding was a whirlwind. Nathan and I were settling into married life, adjusting to each other's habits and routines, when we were hit with a curveball. My dad, who had always been the pillar of strength in our family, got sick, really sick. It was cancer, and it came out of nowhere, or so it seemed. We spent a lot of time at the hospital, and during one of those visits, Dad decided to have a heart-to-heart with me. Nathan was there too, fetching coffee down the hall. When he returned, he found us whispering seriously and sat down, his face etched with concern. "Ella, there's something important I need to tell you," Dad said, his voice weaker than I remembered it ever being. He took a deep breath, grasping for every bit of strength he could muster. "I've made some decisions about the estate. You're going to inherit $3 million. The room felt silent for a moment, even with the constant beeps and murmurs of the hospital around us. I didn't know what to say. It was a lot of money, a life-changing amount. Nathan, who had just sat down with the coffees, almost choked on his drink. "Wow, that's a lot of money," he stammered, trying to keep his composure. I could see the wheels turning in his head, and something in his expression shifted. It was subtle, but it was there. A flicker of something that wasn't just surprise. It looked a lot like calculation. "Yeah, it's a big responsibility," I responded, feeling suddenly very tired. "It's not just about the money, it's about keeping Dad's legacy alive, making sure we manage everything responsibly." Dad nodded, looking relieved that I understood the weight of his decision. "I trust you, Ella. You know what's important." Nathan quickly added, "Of course, we'll take care of everything, sir. It's what's best for our future, right, Ella?" I noticed the we in his statement and felt a twinge of discomfort. This was suddenly about us, not just me. "Yeah, sure," I said, but my mind was racing. This wasn't how I wanted this conversation to go. After that day, things changed. Nathan started talking more about investments, real estate, things we could do with the inheritance. One night, over dinner, he brought it up again. "So, I was thinking about the money," he began, not wasting any time. "We should start looking into some properties. Maybe even consider some high-yield investments." I was pushing my food around my plate, not really hungry anymore. "Nathan, can we slow down a bit? This isn't just free cash to throw around. It's my dad's hard-earned money. We need to be careful, think things through." He looked a bit taken aback, but recovered quickly. "Of course, I get that. I just think it's a good opportunity to grow our assets, you know? Make sure we're set for the future." The word "our" hung in the air, heavy and a bit too presumptuous for my taste. "Yeah, I know. But let's just handle one thing at a time, okay? My dad's still here, and that's what matters now." Nathan nodded, but the eager glint in his eye didn't match his agreeable tone. "Sure, Ella, whatever you think is best." The weeks following Dad's passing were some of the hardest I'd ever lived through. The world seemed to move on, but I was stuck, my grief a constant shadow. Nathan and his mom, Mrs. Harper, were around a lot, supposedly to help out. One night, their true colors showed through in a way that rocked me to my core. It was late, and I couldn't sleep, too many thoughts, too much sadness. Mrs. Harper had been all sweet and comforting, hovering around me with hot teas and sympathetic smiles. "Ella, dear, you look exhausted. Why don't you take one of these sleeping pills? It'll help you rest," she suggested, holding out a small pill. "Okay, I'll do that," I muttered, not keen on the idea. I didn't want to miss a moment, didn't want to blur the edges of my memories of Dad with drug-induced sleep. She shrugged, placing the pill on the kitchen counter. "I'll be in the living room if you need anything." I nodded, pretending to head to my room, but something felt off. Curiosity, or maybe intuition, nudged me to stay awake, to listen. I crept back towards the living room, the floor cold under my feet, my heart pounding in the silence. Their voices were hushed, but heated. I paused at the edge of the room, hidden by the darkness. Are you sure she took sleeping pills? She's been so stubborn lately. Nathan's voice, frustrated and sharp. Mrs. Harper's reply was smooth, like honey. Give it time. She's vulnerable, grieving. Now's our chance to get things moving. That money should be in your account, not just sitting there. Yeah, and soon. I'm tired of playing the supportive husband. Once we get the cash, I can finally move on. Maybe find someone younger, more fun. The air in my lungs froze. My heart skipped beats. This was not the man I married. This was a stranger, speaking so coldly, so calculatingly. His mother chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. Just make sure I get my share. A new house, perhaps that cute little convertible we saw the other day? Of course, Mom. You'll get whatever you want. Ella's too dumb to figure it out before we clean her out. I felt sick, my hands trembling. How could I have been so blind? The love, the marriage, it was all a setup. Quiet as a shadow, I backed away, needing space to think, to breathe. I went to my room, locked the door, and sat on the bed, my mind racing. They were plotting against me, planning to strip me of everything. Morning came and I acted as though nothing had happened. At breakfast, Nathan and his mother exchanged glances, their smiles too sharp, too knowing. Nathan brought up the inheritance again. Ella, we really should start thinking about that investment. It's what your dad would have wanted, for us to secure our future. His words made my stomach turn, but I kept my face neutral, my voice calm. I'll think about it, Nathan. Let's see what the lawyers say about the best way to handle everything. The days following my father's funeral were some of the hardest I'd ever had to pretend through. I played the part of the devastated daughter to a T, all while watching Nathan and his mother make plans for a future funded by my inheritance. His mother wasn't even trying to hide it anymore, openly browsing for new houses and cars on her laptop in the living room, as if the money was already hers. Meanwhile, Nathan was barely home. He stayed late at work, came home later than usual, and even when he was around, he was glued to his phone. One evening, as he was taking a shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand next to our bed. Without thinking, I glanced at the screen and saw a message pop up from some woman. It wasn't just friendly, it was flirty. I felt a weird mix of anger and relief. Anger, because of the betrayal, but relief because it just proved what I already knew: a cheater in one part of life is a cheater in all parts. That weekend, I told Nathan I needed to clear my head and visit my mom. He barely looked up from his phone, just nodded and mumbled something about taking all the time I needed. Driving to my mom's place felt like escaping a prison. As soon as I saw her, the weight of everything started to lift. I told her everything: the overheard conversation, Nathan's late nights, the messages. I laid it all out. Mom was furious at first. That rotten scoundrel, she exploded, pacing the kitchen. Playing happy families while plotting behind your back. But then, her anger turned to laughter, a deep, rolling laugh that filled the kitchen. Oh, Ella, they think they're so clever. But they've got another thing coming. Just wait until the wills read. They won't know what hit them. Her confidence was infectious. For the first time since that awful night, I felt like maybe things would turn out alright. So, we just wait. That's it? That's it, she confirmed. Let them make their plans. They're building castles in the air, and we're about to bring them right down to the ground. Back at home, Nathan was exactly where I left him, phone in hand, probably texting that woman. But I didn't care anymore. I had something they didn't, a plan and the truth on my side. I went to bed that night not with a heart heavy with dread, but with a spark of strategy and the anticipation of justice soon to be served. The day to read my dad's will finally arrived, and you could cut the tension in the lawyer's office with a knife. Nathan and his mom were practically buzzing with excitement, thinking they were about to become filthy rich. I was sitting there, feeling like I was about to watch a show, knowing all the while what the finale would be thanks to my mom's hint. We all gathered in the small, stuffy office, the air thick with anticipation. Nathan kept glancing at his watch, and his mom was tapping her foot nonstop. You'd think they were waiting for a lottery draw the way they were carrying on. The lawyer, Mr. Jenkins, cleared his throat and opened the thick folder in front of him. Thank you all for coming today. As per Mr. Thompson's wishes, I will now read the last will and testament. Nathan leaned forward, practically on the edge of his seat. His mom whispered, "Here we go," under her breath, rubbing her hands together like she was about to receive her birthday present. Mr. Jenkins began with the usual legal jargon but soon got to the part everyone was waiting for. To my daughter, Ella, I leave the sum of $3 million. Nathan's mom let out a little squeal, and Nathan shot me a look that was meant to be comforting but came off as smug. I just stared straight ahead, impassive. Mr. Jenkins continued. However, it must also be noted that along with this inheritance, there are debts incurred by Mr. Thompson amounting to $4 million. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Nathan's face went from smug to shocked to pale in a matter of seconds. His mom was furious. This must be some mistake. We need to see the documents, the proof. Mr. Jenkins, ever the professional, started handing out copies of the financial statements and debt notices. Everything is documented here. If you have any questions, you can consult with your own legal advisor. As the reality of the situation sunk in, my mom stood up. Her voice was calm but carried across the room. Nathan, you need to understand, my husband had a weakness for gambling. He made debts, borrowed from people, from banks. I hope you'll be noble in this situation and help Ella with these debts. Nathan and his mom looked like they had been slapped. Their shock quickly turned to outrage. Help pay the debts? Are you out of your mind? We're not paying for anything we didn't spend. Nathan's mom shouted, her earlier facade of politeness completely gone. Nathan was just as quick to disengage. I want a divorce, Ella. And in the divorce, we'll state that neither of us claims any money or property from the other. That's it. I looked at him, feeling a mix of relief and disgust. Okay, Nathan. If that's what you want, I agree. We can get the divorce papers ready. As they stormed out of the office, fuming and defeated, my mom squeezed my hand, giving me a reassuring look. It's going to be okay, Ella. We're better off without them. After signing the divorce papers, Nathan and his mom couldn't help but show their true colors one last time. As we were leaving the lawyer's office, I heard them snickering behind me. Nathan's mom smirked. Well, at least now she'll be drowning in her father's debts. $1 million in the hole. Nathan laughed, looking back at me. Yeah, good luck dealing with that mess, Ella. I couldn't help but laugh myself, which seemed to confuse them. Nathan frowned. Why the hell are you laughing? That's when my mom stepped in, cool as ever. She had been quiet, just observing until then. Because, Nathan, you've got it all wrong. You see, I've been the one managing our finances all along. Your father-in-law, bless his soul, wasn't the financial wizard everyone thought he was. Their smug expressions faltered. What are you talking about? Nathan's mom snapped. My mom smiled, a bit of steel in her gaze. I'm the one who made all the successful investments and stock deals. My net worth is around $50 million. I can cover Ella's inherited debts without breaking a sweat. Nathan's face went white. Wait, what? Are you serious? Yes, Mom continued. And since I'm in a sharing mood, I've decided to give Ella a beautiful house as well, one that she won't have to share with anyone, especially not a gold digger. The shock on their faces was priceless. Nathan actually dropped to his knees, his earlier arrogance gone as he stammered, Ella, please, I didn't mean any of it. I was just mixed up. I turned my back on him and his mother, who was still trying to process the revelation. As we walked away, I blocked their numbers on my phone. That was the last I wanted to hear from either of them. Weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that Nathan was in trouble. His debts had caught up with him, and the bailiffs were after him. He tried to reach out, sending messages through mutual friends, begging for help. I didn't waver. Tell him I wish him the best of luck, I told a friend who relayed his pleas. That was the most help he'd get from me.